My name is Natalie. I am 34 years old. I want to tell you something about my life. It is not easy to say. I do not feel proud, but it is my truth. I married 2 times. I tried to be happy. I wanted love, but love did not stay with me. I am still in pain. I met my first husband when I was 25. His name was Brian. He was friendly and smart. He asked me many questions. He made me smile. We met in a simple way. I was waiting for the bus. He was also there. He said, "It's a long wait today." I laughed and said, "Yes, it is." Then we talked. He called me the next day. I said yes to meet again. We walked in the park. We talked about music and food. He liked tea. I liked coffee. We laughed. He held my hand. I thought he was a good man. After 8 months, we got married. The first days were nice. He brought fruit from the market. We went for short walks. We watched movies. We cooked dinner together. I smiled a lot in those days. I thought, yes, this is love. This is life. But after some time, things started to change. He stayed quiet. He went out more. He came home late. He looked tired. When I asked, "Is everything okay?" he just said, "I'm fine." But I could feel something was wrong. He did not listen when I talked. He did not ask me about my day. He looked at his phone a lot. We ate dinner in silence. I tried to make him happy. I made his favorite food. I asked, "Do you want to go out this weekend?" He said, "I'm busy." One evening I said, "Brian, do you still love me?" He looked at me and said, "Don't ask silly things." Then he left the room. I sat there alone. The food on the table was cold. My heart felt cold too. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. For many months I waited. I thought maybe things would get better, but they didn't. We lived in the same home, but we were not close. It felt like I was just a person in the room, not a wife, not someone he cared for. I felt lost. One day I said, "I can't live like this. I feel alone." He said nothing. He looked away. I said, "I want a divorce." He said, "Do what you want." And that was it. After 3 years of marriage, it ended like that. No fight, no goodbye, just silence. I moved to a new place. It was small, but it was mine. I sat on the floor the first night. I looked around. It was quiet. I felt sad, but I also felt safe. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. For 1 year, I stayed alone. I went for walks. I listened to music. I read books. I tried to understand myself. I told myself, next time I will choose better. I will not rush. I will wait for the right man. Then I met another man. His name was Kevin. He had a warm smile. He spoke kindly. He helped old people cross the road. He gave his seat to others on the bus. I thought, he is different. He is kind. We met at a friend's small dinner. We sat next to each other. He asked about my job. I asked about his family. We talked for hours. He made me laugh. He looked into my eyes. I felt something new, something gentle. He called me the next day. He asked, "Can I see you again?" I said yes. We went to a small cafe. We sat by the window. He talked about his love for old movies. I listened. I smiled. I thought, maybe this time it will be okay. After 1 year, we got married. It was a small wedding. Just close friends. I wore a soft pink dress. He wore a gray jacket. We held hands and said, "I do." I felt happy. I really did. I thought, this is a new start. But soon I saw it again. The silence, the distance, the cold. He worked long hours. He came home late. He ate quickly and went to bed. I asked, "How was your day?" He said, "Just work." I waited for more words, but he said nothing. I started eating alone. He said he was too tired. He stopped asking how I felt. When I said, "I feel lonely," he just said, "You think too much." That line again. The same line from my first husband. "You think too much." I could not believe it. I had married again. I had tried again. But I was back in the same place. A home with no joy. A table with no talk. A bed with no love. I felt tired. Not just in my body, but in my soul. One evening I made dinner. I waited for him. He came in and said, "I ate outside." He looked at his phone. I said, "Do you want to sit with me?" He said, "I need to sleep early." I sat there alone, looking at the food. I felt empty. I remembered my first home, the one I had after the divorce. It was small, but I felt calm there. Now I had a bigger place, but I felt lost again. 2 men, 2 homes. 2 times I gave my heart. 2 times it broke. I started to change. I stopped cooking for 2. I stopped waiting. I stopped hoping. I started going for walks alone. I sat in the park and watched people. I saw children laugh. I saw old couples holding hands. I wanted that, but I did not have it. Sometimes I asked myself, is something wrong with me? But no. I know I gave my best. I know I loved with all I had. But love is not just about trying. it is also about who you choose. Now, I am still married, but I feel alone again. I live in a house, but it does not feel like a home. I speak, but no one listens. I smile, but only in front of others. I do not know what comes next, but I know I am tired. I wanted love. I wanted peace. I thought marriage would give me both, but it didn't. I married twice, but I am still in pain. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. I woke up early one morning. The sun was shining, but my heart was heavy. Kevin was still asleep. He always slept late on weekends. I looked at him. He looked peaceful, but I did not feel close to him. We had been married for 2 years now. I tried to be a good wife. I made breakfast. I cleaned the home. I smiled when he came back from work, but I did not feel seen. I did not feel loved. One day I asked, "Do you love me?" Kevin looked at me. He said, "You always ask this." I said, "Because I don't feel it." He stood up and said, "I work hard. That is love." Then he left the room. I sat alone at the table. I drank my tea slowly. I wanted to feel something. I wanted to believe him, but I could not. Love is not just work. Love is not just coming home. Love is care. Love is listening. Love is time. That week he came home late every night. He said work was busy. I asked, "Can we have dinner together one night?" He said, "Maybe next week." But that week never came. On Sunday, I went to see my old friend. Her name is Sophie. We sat in her kitchen. She made tea. She looked at me and said, "You look sad." I said, "I feel empty." She held my hand. She said, "Tell me what is wrong." I told her everything. I told her about Ryan. I told her about Kevin. I told her how I felt alone in both homes. She listened. She did not speak for a long time. Then she said, "You give too much, Natalie, but they do not give back." Her words stayed in my head. All night I thought about them. You give too much. It was true. I gave time. I gave care. I gave love. But what did I get back? Silence. Cold words. A quiet table. A quiet bed. I started walking every morning. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. The park near my home was quiet. I liked to sit on the bench and watch the trees. I watched people walk with dogs. I watched children run. I liked the sound of laughter. It made me feel human. One day I saw an old couple. They walked slowly, side by side. The man held the woman's hand. She smiled at him. He looked at her with love. I felt a tear on my cheek. I wanted that. just simple love, real love. That evening, Kevin came home early. I was surprised. I said, "You're home before dinner." He said, "Yes." "I'm tired." I asked, "Can we talk?" He said, "Not now. My head hurts." Then he went to the bedroom. I stood there. I looked at the food on the stove. I turned it off. I sat down on the floor. I felt small. I felt like nothing. My voice had no place in this house. My heart had no room to rest. A few days later, I tried again. I said, "Kevin, we do not talk. We do not laugh. We are like two people in one house, not one life." He looked at me and said, "What do you want from me?" I said, "I want to feel loved." He said, "Love is not always loud." Then he left the room again. After that, I stopped asking. I stopped waiting. I stopped hoping. I made food just for me. I watched movies alone. I went to the park alone. I started reading books again. I started writing small thoughts in my phone. I wanted to find my voice again. One day Sophie came to visit me. She looked around and said, "It feels quiet here." I said, "Yes. It is always quiet now." She looked at me and said, "Do you want to stay in this life?" I looked at her. I said, "I don't know." I did not know. I was tired of breaking. I was tired of hoping. I was tired of starting again. But I also did not want to stay in a place where love did not live. Kevin did not notice the change. Or maybe he did not care. I do not know. He ate his food. He went to work. He came home and sat with his phone. I stopped trying to speak. I had no more words. One morning, I looked in the mirror. My face looked older. My eyes looked sad. I said to myself, "You are still young. You still have time. Do not waste it in silence." That day, I packed a small bag. I left the house. I went to Sophie's place. I stayed there for a few days. Kevin did not call. He did not ask where I went. He did not ask if I was okay. On the fourth day, he sent a message. It said, "Are you coming back?" "No, how are you?" "No, I miss you." Just, "Are you coming back?" I did not reply. I did not know what to say. Sophie said, "You do not have to go back if it hurts you." I nodded. I knew she was right, but it was hard. I had married again. I had tried again. And now I had to leave again. It felt like I failed. Again. But deep in my heart, I knew this was not failure. This was truth. This was me learning. This was me choosing peace. And peace is not failure. Peace is love for myself. I sat on Sophie's sofa. I looked out the window. I saw the trees move in the wind. I took a deep breath. I closed my eyes. I said to myself, "You will be okay. Kevin never called again. Not once. Not even to ask why I left. That told me everything. He was never really with me. Just like Ryan. 2 men. 2 chances. 2 times I gave my heart, but no one held it with care. Now, I am still with Sophie. I am thinking about my next steps. I do not want to rush. I do not want to marry again. I want time. Time to heal. Time to grow. Time to find myself. Maybe one day I will love again. But now, I just want to feel free. I want to wake up in a place where I feel safe, where I can smile for real, where I can speak and be heard, where love is not just a word, but a feeling. I married twice, but I am still in pain. I want to stop the pain. I want to find peace. And this time, I will look for it in me. I stayed with Sophie for some more time. Her home was small, but it felt warm. We talked each night. We ate simple food. We watched old shows and laughed. I had not laughed like that in a long time. She never asked me to go back. She said, "Take your time." I was thankful for her. She was the only person who truly saw me. She did not tell me what to do. She only listened. One morning, I woke up and looked out the window. It was raining. The sky was gray, but I felt calm. I sat with my tea and thought about my life. I thought about both my marriages, and I asked myself, why did I stay so long? I stayed because I was scared. I did not want to be alone. I stayed because I hoped things would get better. I stayed because I thought love must always hurt. But now I know real love should not feel like this. After some days, I told Sophie, I want to look for my own place. She smiled and said, I will help you. We spent 2 weeks looking. Then we found a small flat. It had 1 bedroom, a kitchen, and a little balcony. It was simple, but I liked it. I moved in with just a few things. I placed my cup near the window. I put a soft blanket on the chair. I made the bed with white sheets. That night, I sat on the balcony. I looked at the stars. I felt peace. No one shouted. No one walked away. No one said I was too much. It was quiet, but it was not the cold kind of quiet. It was the soft kind, the safe kind. I made new plans for my days. I went for walks in the morning. I bought fresh fruit from the market. I sat in the park and watched the trees move. I started reading again. I started smiling more. Sometimes the pain came back. It came like a soft wind. It touched my heart. But I did not fight it. I sat with it. I let it pass. I said, you are part of me, but you do not control me. One day, I met an older woman in the park. She was sitting on the bench beside mine. We looked at the flowers. She smiled and said, they grow slow, but they always bloom. I smiled back. I said, "Yes. They just need care." She nodded and said, "Just like people." We sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Do you live near?" I said, "Yes. Just 2 streets from here." She said, "I come here often. I lost my husband last year." I looked at her and said, "I lost 2, but in a different way." She touched my hand and said, "You are still young. You will grow strong again." Her words felt soft, but they stayed with me. I thought of them that night. I whispered them to myself before sleep. Some days later, Kevin sent me a message. He said, "Are you okay?" I looked at the screen. I did not feel sad. I did not feel angry. I just felt nothing. I did not reply. I did not want to open that door again. That night, I thought about how far I had come. I had cried so much. I had begged for love. I had waited in silence. Now, I was alone, but not broken. I was still healing, but I was no longer lost. One afternoon, I saw a woman in the store. She looked at me and said, "Natalie?" I said, "Yes." She said, "It's me, Zoe. We went to school together." I smiled. I remembered her. We talked for a few minutes. She said, "I live nearby now. We should meet again." I said yes. The next week, we met at the cafe near my street. We talked about school, about life, and about love. She said, "I got divorced last year." I said, "I did too. Twice." We laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt good to speak the truth. She said, "It's not easy." I said, "No, it's not." But we smiled. We understood each other. After that, we met every week. We walked in the park. We talked for hours. She said, "I thought I was the only one." I said, "Me too." But we were not alone. There were others like us. Women who tried. Women who gave. Women who hoped. We just never talked about it before. But now we did. And that helped. Talking helped. Listening helped. Being seen helped. One evening, I sat on my balcony again. I looked at the street. I saw a little boy ride a bike. His father ran behind him and clapped. I smiled. I did not feel sad. I just felt peace. I did not know what would come next, but I was okay with that. I was not waiting for a man. I was not waiting for love. I was learning to love myself. That was enough for now. One morning, I looked in the mirror again. My eyes looked soft. My face looked strong. I said to myself, "You are still healing, but you are not weak. You are not broken." I married twice. I gave my heart twice. I lost myself twice. But now I am coming back to me. Slowly, gently, fully, and this time I will not lose myself again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.